it, and also the fact that harnessing the diversity of knowledge and resources. These are just mentioned a few of the action plans and that insight. Going to the second insight, strengthening country forum, we said that one of the action points is to identify and work with champions, and this we refer to as the free actors. Then mentoring of these free actors, and then reviewing the national agricultural extension investment plans or strategy. And the third one is on fundraising, and the action point is, yes, we said that is scanning for opportunities. Secondly is participating in the regional, continental, and global agendas. And thirdly is facilitate the development of strategic plans at national, regional, continental, and global level. So in brief.
Okay, thank you so much. Just one question to the group. If it's a warm process, do you think it's going to be a warm process or a cold one? Is there a lot of energy? You feel there's energy? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, all the best. It's a very ambitious plan, and I wish you all the best. Who else? Which other group would like? Over there. Asata. Southern Africa.
Southern Africa, key insights: abundant energy, dysfunctional network, and energy can be transferred to funds. Dysfunctional network, and evidence of it is that majority of people who are the African week are splitting, majority are not here. Some have started country forum in their respective countries. The people that are here are not aware of what is happening. So it's like the network is existing but not alive. 3 actions. Action number 1, establishment of country forum, and then the activities related to that will be the first week. There was a Botswana declaration where we had a huge representative of people from different countries in Africa about country forum establishment. That linkage, the follow-up from there to here now, it's missing. So we want to follow up with those activities. Number 2, database of stakeholders who are the key people that will be. For example, in Malawi, we have about 70 institutions that have signifying interest in the country forum, but the biggest organization in Malawi represented here is not among those 70 institutions. AFA's secretariat to share information with the Southern African group so we can continue from where the Botswana declaration stopped. The second action, establishment of SARAs. This is Southern African Rural Advisory Services, a network that will take all the standard countries into consideration, and then the activity will be GFRAS and GFRAS to help facilitate and coordinate the establishment of the Southern African Rural Advisory Service Network. The third action is the creation of a database. We want to be able to have a list, a database of all institutions related to rural advisory services, the training institutions, the NGOs, the producer organizations, the public and private rural advisory service providers for all the 16 countries in Southern Africa. And so we believe that if we have the database per country at the country forum level, then at the regional level we'll be collating that, and that will be sufficient for us to know who our stakeholders are for the Southern African region. Thank you.
Okay, thank you also very much to Southern Africa. Very specific and clear and operational ideas. Someone else who would like to? Oh yeah, okay. Let's travel a little. So Southeast Asia.
Thank you. This is Southeast Asia, particularly of the Asia Pacific Islands Rural Advisory Services. So we discussed some insights that would particularly contribute to strengthening the networking in the region. And looking back at our experiences and how we can also go forward. And we noticed that in terms of some of our insights, we noticed that there's a need really to focus on process. There is a need to put more energy into this process. Funds remain a very important concern. There is a need to further strengthen communication among members of the network. The need for more strategic plan has had to be there, and there is a need for a more consolidated structure to work together. So what are the things that, the 3 action points that you would like to see in the next year? First is we realize the need for institutional membership from countries to APIRAS. We're emphasizing institutional membership rather than just individual membership. Because if one person leaves a position, then we lose contact of that person already. Institutions, we're looking at institutions who are concerned or interested with extension and who will continue and be the champion of organizing this country fora, as we had already discussed. And this brings me to the second part, which is expanding the APIRAS core group from member countries, particularly as we plan to organize various country fora with the expression of interest already from Laos, Timor-Leste, Japan, Indonesia, and South Korea. So if these countries will now initiate the organization of country fora, therefore we need to become more aware of what they will be doing, and thus their membership in the core group should also be recognized. In the organization of the country fora, it was agreed that the need for fundraising strategy in its respective country is going to be very critical rather than just looking outside for some help. We also noticed, I think for the work plan in each country fora, we thought that the need to be evaluating from time to time, not really evaluating, following up from time to time on the progress or monitoring on the progress of each country fora is going to be very critical in really seeing what is going on and what is not. We also realized the need for sharing information about APIRAS and GFRAS in-country meetings or events to further drumbeat the 2 organizations and their initiatives in rural advisory services. And of course, finally, we would like to see the contribution from members to update our APIRAS website, because this is something that has been there, but there have been poor participation of members. Maybe it's because of some failure to get the accurate address. People had moved from one work to another, and so we are unable to track people already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I found it interesting to say this membership, institutional membership, is an issue to ensure sustainability. We talked about sustainability the other days. Who else? Okay.
You hold it or you just read it? Yeah.
George is a perfect slipshod stand. If you ever need one for a long period. Thank you so much.
Okay. You have to read it.
It gives me the a little bit relationship of potential and kinetic energy. We all together, individually, we have a lot of potential energy. When we move, we gain kinetic energy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the reason we want to move around and see how this momentum can be kept alive. ASA is already a forum for the Southeast Asia, so where we are trying to work in South Asia. The first priority of the 3 action points, to be quick enough, is to expand the virtual network, which is already existing with us. So there's already a website with which we are working, and there's also we are in Facebook as well as in LinkedIn. So we want to expand this user base. Number one, priority to create awareness, generate interest, and come forward for participations of other relevant actors in meetings and conferences. The second one is face-to-face meeting with the key stakeholders, scheduled in January 2014, where in Kathmandu and Nepal has been the venue identified, wherein the stakeholders of the SAARC countries will be sitting together and formulating strategies and action plan and a roadmap how to go forward from it. And from this GFRAS conference, we have gained a lot of questionnaires as well, how to popularize and how to try to work on this agenda. The last one could be raise financial resources to implement priorities identified in collaboration with GFRAS and GFRAS. A lot of PIRAs are there. So forums where collaborative actions can happen and try to mobilize resources. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And meet you in Kathmandu.
Meet you in Kathmandu, he says. The Caribbean islands.
Just well continue, George.
You're too short for that.
Well, but this is network. That time you do. This is global networking now. Okay.
He just mentioned about kinetic energy, right? So it's passed on to him now. Right, so we are from the Caribbean Agriculture Extension Providers Network. In terms of the actions, the future actions for us in the near future, the first one, we wish to present the network to the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, which is going to be from the 5th to the 12th of next month, and that will be held in Guyana, my country. We had the first meeting of the network towards the end of February, and just a few of us extension providers from the Caribbean. Now we're hoping to use this forum to introduce the network to the wider level of the various stakeholders in the Caribbean. The second point is to develop a mailing list, and like somebody else mentioned previously, a database for all the extension providers in the Caribbean, including the private sectors and farmers organization as well. And the third is to have a meeting sometime next year. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Green here. He's from the Caribbean. I'm seeing him for the second time. So it's a very good force for this meeting here to enable us, especially me, to have this meeting and interaction with him. And through his input and his advice and sort of guidance, we're hoping to have this meeting sometime next year, and he will be a big part of that meeting. So hopefully, we can have this. We can have this, and probably see some of you there as well next year. Thank you very much.
Okay, and as you offer a very attractive location, I think the chances are good that some people might want to come there. I already saw that Latin America was eager to take the floor.
Hi. Well, we had a very long discussion here. First, we agreed that we should work on elaborating guidelines about diversity, not in the sense of making a strong structure, but the idea is to give a framework where every country forum or the regional networks, they can learn how to approach the different stakeholders. In which way do we want to involve universities, producer organizations, and the government? Especially the government, because in some countries it's difficult to involve them. So we want to give strategies of how to establish these relationships. The second point is that we need to work on a knowledge management system. Maybe start by thinking the main points that we should include there, establish agreements in this point. The third thing is that we want to promote our internal capacity of innovation and adaptation. This discussion was in a way of sustainability. We were thinking, okay, we need to think how the world is changing, how each country is reacting to the different situations, and only in that way we will be able to be sustainable, to provide information that is useful, and then we will find a way to fund internally, to find donors or to get fees, but this will be the key for getting a sustainable model. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Strategic orientation and a couple of pressing issues and complex issues you're taking. I cut West Africa short right now, so obviously it's your turn.
Merci beaucoup. Vous êtes étonné qu'il y aura 2 présentateurs. C'est parce que l'Afrique centrale et de l'Ouest est bilingue, anglophone et francophone. Mais nous nous entendons très bien. Voilà.
Thank you. As you know, West Central Africa, we have 2 languages. We are bilingual, English and French. Therefore, we have prepared this presentation. This is going to show you that the 2 groups are ready to work together, and we want to give the interpreters a rest.
Ok. Au niveau de... Lorsqu'on a présenté la carte de GFRAS, vous avez vu que au niveau de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, nous avons déjà un réseau qui s'appelle le RESCA, qui est, disons, en création, mais qui aujourd'hui est un peu en souffrance. Nous avons essayé ici de faire un peu le diagnostic du réseau et on a vu qu'il y a un problème de formalisme et que le réseau n'a pas encore démarré parce que c'est trop formalisé.
Thanks to GFRAS motivation and like, the journey of RESCA started some time back. It was in response to addressing the need of the 2 divergent groups. That's why we're here to do. RESCA is starting, but it has not actually started, it will restart. We'll go to the points now.
Ok. Le premier point que nous avons identifié pour redynamiser le RESCA, c'est de réactiver le RESCA à org comme une plateforme pour l'Afrique centrale et de l'Ouest.
The first thing we want to do is to rekindle, to restart, reactivate RESCA so that it will serve the role of a platform in West Africa for GFRAS network.
Et par rapport à ce qui a été dit aujourd'hui, nous avons constaté que pour pouvoir insuffler l'énergie nécessaire pour que ce réseau puisse être réactivé, il faut qu'on s'assure que les centres d'intérêt de tous les membres de cette région est commun. Donc avoir un intérêt commun qui puisse captiver tous les membres du réseau.
In order to capture the energy, we want to reactivate the network and then to focus on things that are common interest to all the countries so that we keep the momentum going.
Et nous avons aussi identifié que pour cette réactivation, il va falloir que le réseau sorte un peu du formalisme parce que ce qu'on a constaté, on a perdu trop d'énergie à formaliser le réseau, à chercher à organiser un atelier de lancement, à chercher à faire la mobilisation des ressources pour le lancement et d'autres activités et on a oublié vraiment le résultat. Donc il faut ici poursuivre le travail en réseau de façon informelle pendant qu'on continue par formaliser.
What had been the issue is to have the structure up and running, and therefore the second thing we want to look at is how we make the structure functional and get it working.
Et nous avons identifié aussi qu'il va falloir que il va falloir œuvrer pour l'émergence et le renforcement des forats nationaux. Dans la région, aujourd'hui, il y a des pays qui ont déjà des forats, mais qui ne sont pas très fonctionnels. Il y a des pays où les réseaux ne sont même pas existants. Donc, je crois qu'il va falloir également focaliser les énergies sur cette partie.
Okay. We want to also make sure we stimulate or we support the emergence of fora in different countries. Then we are going to have enough people in the network and focal people that will help to enlarge our RESCA and share the burden and reduce the load on just a few people now who are tasked with getting things running.
Et un autre élément que nous avons identifié qui peut également contribuer au développement du réseau, c'est que le réseau africain qui est AFAS fasse l'effort de pouvoir publier, de pouvoir communiquer avec tous les membres en Afrique en utilisant plusieurs langues à la fois, y compris le français, pour pouvoir également captiver l'attention des francophones et également des anglophones. Donc, ici, la communication dans plusieurs langues par notre réseau continental AFAS sera très importante.
This one is particularly for AFAS. We want to make sure the communication within AFAS represents the diversity of languages and interest in the country. We are therefore proposing that communication in the AFAS network be opened up so that we can now have communication between in French and in English so that all parts of Africa will have equal access to the communication.
Et enfin, nous envisageons qu'il puisse avoir une convention de collaboration entre AFAS, le CORAF et le RESCA, parce que le CORAF est aujourd'hui un peu le parrain du RESCA, donc que cela puisse aider à l'émergence du RESCA, avec une facilitation du GFRAS également. Voilà.
Now we are looking for a tripartite relationship which would be solidified by an MOU, but which would have three partners: AFAS, CORAF, the West and Central African Research Network, which is going to nest the small organization and a small network RESCA that will start. But then we will also look at GFRAS to also play a facilitating role in the whole process so that the arrangements that are made will work effectively.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. We learned that the European network was kind of started, was born a couple of days ago. Maybe it would be interesting to hear what's on your agenda. Would that be someone from there, from Europe? Yeah?
Okay, thank you. We have now 3 groups from Europe, and we are only those who have been selected to be Western, even we don't feel very much Western. Europe should not be divided, but OIFAS is our topic, and OIFAS is the youngest child of this family of GFRAS, and that is why we thought about dominating thinking about this OIFAS. We have now 2 days of being alive, and at that moment, immediately there is a strong need for understanding of the profile of each of our members. We don't know them all today, so tomorrow it is urgent to know them. Then we have to collect and to disseminate examples of good practice, of advice, especially in the sense of added value by extension, because that is what our politicians are asking us. What is the added value? Why should we do it? But why? So shouldn't we spend the public money for something else? So this is an urgent thing, which is demanded already tomorrow. Going back to Brussels, that will be asked nearly every week. Giving a voice to providers of advisory services, that is what the European Commission is asking us. They told us we need a spokesman of those. So they ask us next week what it is the opinion of advisors and your role in the Rural Development Program, where we have funding. What is your opinion on the European Innovation Partnership? What could be the role of advisors when we are establishing innovation brokers? And all this we should answer immediately without having discussed at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. After 2 years, 2 days alive, I think it's already quite a good outlook for you. You want another group? Okay.
Our group was East and Central Europe. We were mainly focused on Balkans, more specifically Western Balkans. This is where, since we are not in any group, we don't belong anywhere. And since our level of development in advisory services and extensions are more or less the same. So what we thought is to establish a network of Western Balkans regarding or concerning advisory services and extensions. And the second action point would be to establish a working group that will define procedures to identify needs, regional needs, with other words, to have some kind of thematic approach and to identify our needs, because needs may be varying and different from region to region or country to country. And the third that we think is very important, after we establish the working group, identify needs, by March to prepare a meeting to establish joint goals and present at the Croatia Forum, EALB meeting that will be held for next summer in Zagreb, and we believe that that is the ideal forum to present our networking goals, ideas, and needs. So, number 4 is to participate in the forum and present our needs and ideas.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we heard from quite a number of groups, networks, sub-regions, and sub-regions. Good, forget Central Asia.
It seems we are again, although Central Asia and Caucasus are this year present with more people, they still forget us. No.
The last one is normally one that's being remembered, so.
Last year, there was from this region, big region with many small countries, only one country was represented in the GFRAS meeting in Manila. This was Kyrgyzstan. And this year already something like 5.5 of these countries are represented. 4 are sitting here on this table, and this is Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. And Armenia was here, but I think she has already left. And this Armenian lady, she studies in Germany or studied in Germany and is working in Russia. So we have half, also even Russia here. Half. Okay. You see, with this expansion, it already becomes a bit more complicated. How to call this thing? Central Asia is here, and we have Caucasus. Is this South Caucasus or is it whole Caucasus? I don't want to get into details here, but it shows already the diversity and the different interests and opinions of the people in these regions. But anyway, one of the things we would like to achieve in the next year is to organize a regional Central Asian or Central Asia and Caucasus RAS event, probably in Kyrgyzstan, but it may also finally happen in another country. I think this is a kind of is a kind of launching meeting, launching event for better interaction among the different countries in the region, all advisory services. Okay, and for this we would like to work close together with the GFRAS Secretariat, that is actually already agreed, but we would, the challenge will be to mobilize more of these Central Asia and Caucasus countries, and then we had already big discussions. To what extent can we mobilize also the big neighbors, Turkey and Russia? On the one hand, they have maybe faster. Okay, this is an action point. They also have so many points there. Okay, Turkey and Russia are. We had discussions whether to include these big actors, and what is sure is that we have to include government and non-governmental actors, farmer organizations, because that is in many countries a problem to get them together. Okay. And as a second point, but not necessarily second in sequence, is that we need to elaborate a kind of a joint network concept and package this attractively. And here a big challenge is we need first, as they also understand all the actors and all the countries' different situations and interests and possible contributions better before this can be done. And then maybe we find also the way of how to do it best. And once it is attractively packaged, then one can go and look, try to find finance, not for big network, but for here key part, and for here a key part, and for here a key package, using different approaches to fundraising, maybe not only conventional ones. Let's see what ideas will come up there. And in elaborating this concept, there is also a challenge. There are at the moment appearing different platforms of collaboration in the region related to agriculture. And for example, there is a research network, then there are a farmer organization network, then the EU organizes something, then the World Bank organizes something, FA organizes something, and the challenge is to find a niche and to find the right niche and to include, to kind of, or unify different efforts which aim in the same direction. Okay? And then maybe this is the first point actually, to raise awareness that something like GFRAS exists and that such meetings take place and that agricultural advisory services are a big discussion topic all around the world, is by summarizing, by communicating about GFRAS to the actors in the region, first by making a summary of what was discussed here and about what GFRAS is, and then possibly translating the key GFRAS documents, not big things, to Russian and other regional languages.
Okay, thanks so much. But not a second presentation.
I need to add something. Yes, I'm presenting.
Make it short.
Yeah, of course. I'm always. First of all, disappointment to organize this event in September, which I was really better to organize it in October for Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest is right now. To just move music and it's going on at the moment.
So in this case, I need to. I agree and disagree also with this because ambition, we have real ambitions, and must be our ambitions real and trustful and must motivate to persons and countries and farmers also. And I'm always realistic. I'm always trying to be reliable in our activities. And by the way, I'm also presenting here Eastern Partnership CCO Forum, the national platform, and I'm coordinator of agricultural policy and world development in Moldova. And for October 3 to 4 October, we will organize in Brussels new CCO Forum. where we discussed agricultural policy and rural development, where by we will be presented the ideas organized as a result of GFRAS. And I think we will have some maybe problems to communicate with from Southern Caucasus and Turkey to Central Asia, because it makes some large scale format to organize real, effective, and to be interactive in well, to be done, for instance, good policy, good practice, to implement some joint programs. I think that I need to have more real ideas and advices to establish, for instance, Southern Caucasus and same time, and to interact each other. To start from the global is not makes sense to have more effective.
Good. Thank you. Looking at the time, I'm afraid we don't have the time to have more individual statements. However, is there any group I overlooked? Okay, then the last group, briefly.
I'll be very quick. This is just from one of the global groups. We've had 3 points to make. The first is that the forum has created a great deal of energy, brought it together, and it's very clear from the number of people who came here. And one of the key points on that is to try to keep up this energy by the open debates which are published online. So to make sure that it's very inclusive, to keep this going, to make sure it's open for anybody who is interested to comment, and to publish easily digestible short summaries of those so people can stay involved. This partly helps keep up the energy. The second point, and it was already identified by the European, West European group, is the importance of publishing some success stories, one or more ideally from each regional network. And possibly then this would grow as things go on. This should be quite specific, including context, what led to success, what other routes were tried without success, so we can see what works and what doesn't work in different regions. And the third point was to try to identify, stimulate, encourage working groups around key global and regional issues, because the regions will have very different issues that matter to them.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, thanks to all the groups for their intensive discussions and their very specific planning for the coming months. We wish you all the best, and we hope that you have sufficient free actors in your groups, in your networks, in order to maintain this momentum and the energy, and to keep it moving as a whole process, as we heard this morning. The second part of this session would be, or will be, the wrap-up of the summary, feedback wrap-up of the thematic themes which we had on the first day. And as you know, we had 3 rapporteurs, and they worked very hard in the evening yesterday, and I think even today during lunchtime, etc., to try to capture the rich discussions which we had in the different subgroups on Tuesday, sorry. And I would like to start this by asking Najim. What? Okay. to help us with Nashla. Okay, I'll try. Presenting a summary of the topic 1 and group 1.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. I will try to be as brief as possible, as simple as possible, to overcome this wrap-up. When we have been over the last few days talking about producers' associations, private advisors, civil society organizations, cooperatives, dealers of inputs and processing firms, and partnerships with the public sector of all of these separately, of course. And these represent the types of private sector. I don't know how to do it. Okay. So all these private sector and producer organizations that provide service to the RAS are have their comparative advantages as well as their limitations. They may, for example, understand the farmer or understand the market, have unconditional, unbiased advice, have a flexible approach, a global knowledge base, high level of trust between the farmer and the advisor, but of course they have many limitations. They may be unable to integrate small-scale farmers, marginalize the farmer interest. They may exclude women or at least not be gender sensitive. They may be profit maximizers, donor-driven. They may have product promotion biases, may lack continuing professional development, and have limited information base. However, advisors need to be, this is a message that is addressed to advisors, they need to be transparent on what to offer farmers, they need to be flexible, they need to make sure to include women in commercialization and other activities, to have an integrated approach, to be serious on environmental concerns, to adhere to corporate social responsibility principles through practice, and advisors, on top of all, need to work within the national policy framework of the country, if it exists, of course. That is why GFRAS has really a big load of recommendations. They are invited to be present in policy debates and dialogues, to promote core competencies for all types of advisors, to work towards harmonization of standards for advisory services, and to advocate for better monitoring, to promote training and capacity building, especially for producer organization service providers, to have more evidence on the private sector service providers, and to disseminate success stories of the private sector and producer organization in us. I take this opportunity to thank GFRAS, GIZ, VNZ, and IALB to give me this chance to participate in this rich and enriching event. I hope all the best for you all, and I thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the task to summarize these complex discussions in a few very valid slides. Thanks so much. Just a question, maybe, is there a brief question or another comment from the group? Is there something you would like to stress, something you feel especially important? No, so obviously you captured all the discussion, the rich discussion, very well. And then I would hand over to Raul to enlighten us on the results of Group 2.
Okay, good afternoon. It's not evening, but it's evening in my country now. But good afternoon, everybody. So, thematic session 2 delve on the mechanisms to strengthen producer organizations' roles and capacities in rural advisory services. So the first question that we try to answer is, why producer organizations? Why do we have to talk about them in relation to RAS? And first, it's very evident the reason why there is RAS in the first place is because we want to have farmers, and producer organizations represent these farmers. And it's very intriguing in one of the plenary presentations at the start of this meeting that to see that the primary source of information of farmers at the moment, at least in that case study, was farmer-to-farmer exchanges. So there is a lot of innate capacity and knowledge and experience and linkages within that farmer community that RAS providers can tap through farmer organizations.
Since I think it's quite evident that organized farmers can play an important role, but their potential still has to be proven. The second question that we tried to answer was, what roles then can producer organizations play, and what are the challenges that they face? And we tried to divide the recommendations or the issues into demand side and supply side. So on the demand side, we are saying that a primary role of producer organizations is to identify and synthesize the needs, demands, and solutions of farmers. I would add that identifying problems is probably the easy part. Although farmer organizations can still play a vital role in sorting out the many problems that farmers face and focusing on priorities. But I would say that the harder part is finding solutions that work given the conditions that farmers are in. And here the producer organizations can help a lot in evaluating options and developing strategies and generating consensus among groups of farmers. The farmer organizations can also help in facilitating access to information, knowledge, and resources. On the supply side, we have seen some cases of farm producer organizations actually delivering rural advisory services to their members. So that is a potential for farmer organizations. At the same time, they are able to mobilize farmers to implement rural advisory service recommendations. I think a key contribution of farmer organizations is to bring the farmers together, not only in assessing their needs, but also in mobilizing them to solve the problem. Many problems that farmers face, such as pest control, or water scarcity, or market failure, cannot be solved unless the farmers work together as a group. And we also discussed the role of farm organizations in acting or functioning as a bridge or as a table where different stakeholders and players can meet together so that they can link up and form partnerships among themselves. And then a few cross-cutting roles. They can help a lot in terms of advocacy and policy formulation because they represent farmer interests that the government policymakers may probably be more receptive to. Very important for farmer organizations to tell the RAS people if they're doing a good job or not. They are supposed to be the beneficiaries. They have the right, I think, and also the responsibility to make sure that the services are responding to what they need. And then, to some extent, farmer organizations can help co-finance RAS activities, whether in cash, which is very limited, but more in kind in terms of human resource and similar types of contributions. The third issue that we discussed was how then can what then can producer organizations do to enhance their contribution to RAS. Again, from the demand side, the first recommendation is change in mindsets. Even farmer organizations are not geared up or oriented towards looking at their organizations as vehicles for rural advisory service delivery. Most of them have been formed to address problems like land disputes or similar types of urgent problems, but not for RAS delivery. So they have to be more open-minded and forward-looking to look at an opportunity to use their organizations for RAS. At the same time, a lot of RAS providers, especially from government, continue to look at farmer organizations and farmers as clients instead of potential partners. So change of mindsets. Secondly, we need to improve the governance and organizational stability of the producer organizations. In many cases, the elected leader of the organization is the most popular or the most charismatic, but not necessarily the most capable. And we have to help these organizations strengthen themselves. On the supply side, there is a clear need for capacity building to help the producer organizations in delivering RAS services. and also to package information into farmer-friendly products and disseminate them through innovative communicative techniques like using women as effective GFRAS players, farmer field schools, sorry about my voice, farmer-to-farmer exchanges, the use of ICT, and I forgot to put the importance of translating information materials into the local dialects. Again, it's very important to enhance the engaging and partnership with other actors in the system. Sorry, I'm finishing. And finally, to develop mechanisms for sustainability of the RAS services, and we have seen a lot of samples and services, co-funding, treatment, etc. Finally, what then can GFRAS as a network, international network, contribute to how can it contribute to this effort? And it is. First, it can help a lot in evaluating and documenting and disseminating the good practices, but also put them into context so that they have the best fit to particular conditions. So we have a wealth of very good practices from all over the world. It is probably part of our work also to try to see what works in our area and what fits into the local condition. Secondly, that we develop advisory methodologies and training guides for strengthening producer organizations in their roles. And then let's for GFRAS to push a little bit more aggressively at the regional and local level so that we can accelerate the building of capacities of POs to facilitate partnerships. And finally, continue high-level advocacy and awareness raising at the global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Thanks for, despite your little voice, I hope it's good. Okay, and then I would go directly to the third group. Karen, could you present the results of group number 3, and then we'll have some time for question and answer afterwards.
Maybe this is not for me. I'm hiding.
Yeah. Why don't you come to the front?
Our third group have an interesting discussion about sustainability and cost effectiveness in private sector and producer organizations. So we have 3 general conclusions, or main conclusion. The first was always include market element in the extension to increase smallholder income. And the second is beneficiaries pay for extension, but not free product for farmers. The third, 3 keys to sustainability. Incentives, payoff, extra benefits, and training. In support of these general conclusions, we got a lot of ideas, but the main ideas is first, the contract farming. For instance, the farmers' organizations. Farmers needs to be organized, needs a broker, not in a monosonic situation, and it will protect farmers against it. Secondly, is the village-based advisors, farmer input promotion certificates, management and training through FIPS, financing of FIPS, donors and companies, come from the community, encourage testing, business model for village-based advisors, risk mitigation for special shellage crop protection. The third indeed RAS, advice made to closely linked to a product and prevent not address micro issues like climate change. Another approaches that we got from the discussion was about the public funds to contract service providers, but they meant that lack of capacity of governments to manage contracts. And another is the use of ICT. e-extension with radio mobiles, inexpensive info dissemination, user base, and limitation to type of GFRAS. Advice to groups of farmers, cost sharing agreements, and farming providers. About of the recommendation, we got 4 groups of recommendation. The first is into the producer organization, building on existing social and local initiative, business orientation and management capacity, and find a robust business model to which the service is linked. About the private sector is need for public-private partnership with clear strategy for public sector clearly communicated, cost effectiveness learned strategies, and finding robust business model to which the service is linked. And avoid using donor funds to promote private sector service, like cell phones database. For GFRAS, strengthen the farmer organization to increase parachment power, strengthen the regional networks, evidence-based advocacy for pluralistic GFRAS, and real action in countries facilitators to discuss possibility of cost-effective GFRAS, and GFRAS advocacy for policies for extension. And in addition of this recommendation, we got recommendation for government public sector, like funds from government farmer for service provided for accountability and quality control, budget for exclusion, and strengthening research and development transfer. That's all.
Now, obviously, there is probably not the end. This is probably not the end of the discussion and the conclusions, but it would be the beginning. But looking at the time, I don't think we have the time to continue these group works here now in a very extensive form. Nevertheless, I could imagine that there were a couple of recommendations and suggestions that were directly directed towards GFRAS, and maybe, yeah, some members of the steering committee of GFRAS would like to give their first reactions to that. Virginia, I already saw you nodding your head, kind of. Would you like to just comment on what you heard?
Yes. The theme of this conference, which is looking at the role of private sector and producer organizations in rural advisory services. The many discussions that have ensued in the past 2 days really provided the steering committee of GFRAS a wider panoramic view of what the issues are, the constraints, and the prospects of addressing, strengthening, and making the private sector and producer organizations are as important partners in GFRAS. Having heard about the different recommendations that they have forwarded for GFRAS to undertake, I think these are all well covered within the different functions and programs of GFRAS as well. So from the steering committee, I would say that these are challenges which should be addressed by GFRAS in its different activities, of which I think are very much well in place in the programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not the only affected with the field trip yesterday. I think that there are 2 words that were mentioned recently that are change minds. I think most of the work we're doing is changing minds. Changing minds inside the farm organizations, changing minds inside the extensionists. And GFRAS has been doing really good work, I think, in trying to put the topics of changing minds. That's excellent work within the theme of the new extensionist that is related with our function number 3. And I think that is mainly the theme of the capacity development you have to work. And also, I think that is related with function when, that we have to look for evidence. Yeah? Most of these topics, of these things, I think we have very good experience shared, distributed in most parts of the world, but we don't know the good and the bad experiences. So we think that we have to work hardly looking for these experiences and looking for more evidence that we have to look for advocacy from the public and the private sector.
Thank you. I see that Magdalena is also.
Hi.
Okay, the mic there, so.
Thank you very much. I think the results of these three groups actually show that we're on the right track. I don't see any contradiction to the overall framework which we have in GFRAS, but it comes out maybe a bit in a more pronounced way. I also would emphasize what already Francesco said, is the evidence base that we need. And I think the results of the regional networks and sub-regional networks which we heard before, I think this should be maybe a more central point, that we need evidence and good practices from the field coming up. And I would like to encourage the people to participate in the thematic initiatives of GFRAS, because we have already quite a number. We have an initiative on good practices. We have evaluation reference group working on evaluations, country evaluations, on extension reforms. We have a gender working group where we are really looking for participation, particularly from male activists would be needed. And we have the consortium on education and training. And I think the products coming out of these initiatives is really what could give substance to the networks, to the regional networks. Without that, networks have a risk that after a while they might die. But putting evidence forward and good practices of different regions, I think would be crucial. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Magdalena. Also this linking this GFRAS perspective with the various members of the GFRAS, the regional network. Now I saw one hand twice. I would like to give you.
I'm just will say that. Just 3 quick points. One, the absence of the mention of youth in agriculture worries me a bit. I know we're taking it for granted, but we can't take it for granted looking at the average age of the farmer. For some reason, the 3 reports, nothing was mentioned about that. Or maybe it was intended, but I didn't see it. The second point is, when we talk about the capacity building of farmers' organization, I don't see it as just passive, that we're building farmers' organization to have a broker in between. I am seeing that we're building the capacity. Our ideological approach is that we build the capacity of farmers' organization to own a greater portion of the value chain. And they are part of the private sector, and capacity must be built so that they can take advantage and ensure greater wealth attributed and a sustained way to their members. And the last point I would want to raise is that in order for us to really make this thing work, we need greater farmers' organization involvement in all levels of the organization, included at the highest level, not just 1 or 2 taking for granted farmers' organization, but people who are practicing and developing these best experiences on the ground. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. There's a voice from the floor, so to speak. I was just wondering, Christian, do you want to say a word from the Secretariat's perspective, or do you feel that's... No, okay, good, thanks. So we heard comments. I'm a little afraid if we open a public debate and a public discussion, okay, in that case, obviously.
just to comment on Mohammed, we have gone really a long way away because GFRAS was just started from for people who are familiar with the digital initiative. That's about 3-4 years ago. From what we are now is a huge step. And then you can even see from the gap that has been there in extension, huge amount of challenges, information, and so on is still needed and so on. But I think the challenge about creating regional networks is still very real. But the biggest one probably is really concretizing it and formalizing it at the country level, because those are the building blocks. Because if you don't build those building blocks, I think, like somebody said, eventually the networks come and go and so on. But if you have very strong building blocks, I think that's what the foundation will be, and it will continue being there. And I see the biggest challenge in some of those is the diversity of players, private sector, farm organizations, and so on, which we are highlighting. And at country level, I think bringing them on one platform, one table in which to interact, share knowledge, information, and so on is very critical. And therefore, knowledge, information, and management and so on is critical in this. And I think some of the things that we note at country level, unfortunately, is the lack or inadequate use of modern tools. And I think that's the thing that you have to push on because you will not run away. Because it will either make you run away, but you will not run away. So things like ICT, telephones, cell phones, and so on, they're there. So those are the things that constantly we have to make sure that we use for knowledge sharing, information, and so on. So thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Now we heard various different perspectives. We have the wrap-ups, we have the programs from the regional or in some cases country networks, and I think that kind of sums up these days and the discussions there. Obviously it could go on. Lots of food for thought, many alleys that are kind of the beginning. We had a couple of catchwords like evidence-based is required, the changing of the mindset, the linking between the GFRAS level and the regional level, and the strengthening of the country level. I think that covers this kind of spectrum of what we discussed over the last 3 days. As you said, you come a long way over the last years, but I think we also came a long way over the last couple of days already. So thanks to you. And I would like to hand over to George to take us through the final closing steps.
Thank you. I know it has been now a long afternoon, so we come, according to our program, to something like a closing session, or the closing part of this. We are coming to the end of the whole event. We would like to start this, I think, with some, I call it technical announcements. And the first person to ask for is Francisco. I heard. Can you do that from here, or would you like to go?
Me again. It's not a technical announcement, it's an important announcement. Well, as you know, every year we have a call as GFRAS for the country postulation for the next meeting, for the next year meeting. This time we have a record of postulations of interest countries for organizing the next meeting. 5 in total. Years before we had only 1 country presented. So it is a very important moment for GFRAS. I think people are very enthusiastic, very interested in organizing the meeting. This was, as you assume, this was very difficult to identify the country to select for next year meeting. Well, finally, we make a short list for the 2 countries, and we decide that for 2014, the country that will receive the country meeting, the GFRAS meeting, will be Argentina, and for 2015 will be Kyrgyzstan. Thank you very much. I will give the acceptance of the meeting to the representative. nearly from Argentina. It's not Argentinian.
Sí, buenas tardes. En nombre de los colegas argentinos, tenemos el gusto de decirles que estamos sumamente agradecidos por haber sido elegidos para ser sede de la próxima reunión. En ese sentido,
she was saying that in representation of our Argentinian colleagues, we are very thankful for having been chosen as the next GFRAS annual meeting host.
En ese sentido, las instituciones públicas y particularmente el Instituto de Tecnología Agrícola estará poniendo todos los recursos a disposición en la medida de sus posibilidades para que este evento tenga el mejor de los éxitos, los mejores resultados, como siempre ha sido en nuestra región Latinoamérica.
In this way, Argentinian institutions, and especially the INTA, the National Research Center in Agriculture, will be committed in supporting the meeting in every way possible.
Gracias a todos y esperamos verlos de igual manera el próximo año en Argentina.
Thank you very much, and we expect to see you next year in Argentina.
Maria Flores, thank you for the invitation to come to Argentina. Maybe for us, maybe for football. I just like to remind you as the last time not to forget at this moment where we do the closing and exchange also words of thanks for that invitation. Don't forget to fill up your evaluation sheet, please, and leave it in the boxes that are outside the lobby and the secretariat. Just one more time to say so that GFRAS secretariat, being the organizers of this event, do have feedback and do know how even better next time when you meet in Argentina. Having said that, I would like to hand over to the organizers, as I said, GFRAS Secretariat, who managed in a laborious way to get us all here to Berlin for the annual court meeting. And I hand over to Christine.
Thank you very much. I just want to add my 2 cents here in addition to the reactions from the steering committee. I'm seeing the milestones for 2014 in our 3 areas: advocacy, evidence, and capacity strengthening. We plan to be at the EFOD Farmer Forum in Rome to connect better with farmer organizations. There's several regional events that have been mentioned, and we hope they'll be in Central Asia and the Pacific and in South Asia, amongst others. There's the GFRAS annual meeting that we've just heard about sometime next year. And then, of course, the Global Conference on Agricultural Research for Development, GCARD3, is already next year in Africa somewhere. So those are some milestones that we see for 2014, just from the side, the operational side of the Secretariat. But my job here is really to thank a lot of different people. We would really like to thank BMZ, the Federal Ministry for Economic Development and Cooperation. They've supported this meeting generously with regard to financing. GIZ, of course, for their engagement and very reliable logistical work. So we'd like to thank Stefan Frahl and his team, Friederike Kramer, Frederick Overture, Christina Klotz, and Michaela Seitz. We have some Swiss gifts for them. Maybe it's chocolate and then you can ask them for something. We would also like to thank ALB for their intensive field trip preparations. I think many of you were impressed with what you saw. So special thanks to Erich Waldmeier and Ede Albers. Can you come forward to the front and accept a little token of thanks? Erich, please. I would also, thank you very much, like to thank our team of moderators who did a fantastic job in guiding such a diverse group and such a diverse way of interacting. So Gert, Georg, and Anne, thank you very much. Now, and in conclusion, I would really like to to thank my secretariat staff, Lawrence and Dorothee, who've done a lot of work behind the scenes. They made it possible not just for all of us to be here together, but for all of the people online to be with you too. This is being live streamed and it will be recorded for other people to watch as well. So thank you, Secretariat. Back to...
Then we have to say thank you to Steve. Good. Let me also say 2 sentences. Thank you for inviting the team of us, my colleagues Anna, my colleague Gerd. I enjoyed 3 days in Berlin. I hope you did as well. Have a safe trip back home. Tschüss.